What is going on, everybody? This is Williamans. Back out with another review, and today we're continuing our Superman review series, and today we will be reviewing Superman 3. As you guys can see, by the way, this light right in front of me, which I usually have, is not on currently right now, because I'm having, as you guys can see maybe a little bit, I have a new fan in my room, so, we're having 3 new fans in these back bedrooms over here, get introduced to our house. So this is the only light source I have, which I apologize. But before we get into sexual beginning of the review, what's up, guys? Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'm trying to move my cape, sorry. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, because number 1, it's absolutely free. Number 2, also maybe up with the YouTube algorithm and recommend the video to more people, and maybe they could join. And do feel free to comment your thoughts on Superman 3 down below. But with that being said, guys, let's give a quick plot synopsis of the film, shall we? So transition into Sammy.
Computer programmer Gus Gorman is hired by financial tycoon Ross Webster to seize control of a weather satellite and annihilate Colombia's coffee crop. When Superman manages to thwart the plan, Webster commands Gorman to use the satellite to locate kryptonite, the Man of Steel's mortal weakness. But a missing unknown element is the kryptonite, replaced by Gorman with tar, causes an unintended side effect when presented to Superman.
Alright, with Superman 3, as you guys know, basically it's been a while since I've seen all 4 of the Christopher Reeves movies. So basically, these were all kind of first-time watches for me in my brain, even though I've actually seen them more than once, like 3 times probably. So basically I watched, and I keep on saying basically a lot, I apologize. I walked in kind of blind because I hadn't seen them in a very, very long time. Loved the first Superman, loved Superman 2, and then for Superman 3, this was actually the film of the franchise that I remembered the least amount about. I remember the whole entire fight between Superman and Clark, evil Superman, I should say. But everything else, like, it was just a blur to me. I didn't remember anything. Like, I remember Superman 4, but Superman 3, I'm puzzled. Like, I didn't remember anything about it. So, basically, watched it. I said basically again. I watched it the other night. Let's just see what I think about it, shall we? Alright, so starting off with the good for Superman 3, I do think this cast in here is still good. Christopher Reeves, as always, is
Still charming in the role, no matter how bad your movie is. He still is always a plus and does a great job at playing both Superman and Clark Kent, as he usually does.
And there are some parts of this film where I go like, okay, maybe I can, if I'm drunk, maybe I can have a guilty pleasure time with it. And some of the moments I didn't even have to be drunk to enjoy these entertainingly bad sequences, if you will. However, that is the good done. Now let's move on to the next aspect. Which, the big one I already talked about, the main Superman versus Clark Kent fight that you have in here. Well, I do think on paper it's kind of interesting that they have Superman and Clark Kent fighting each other. However, there's so little build-up to the actual fight, and the ending to it, it just comes so abruptly out of nowhere where I was just going, huh? That felt a little underwhelming, even though this was a long fight, so that comes in the mix. I originally was going to go positive, but now that I think about it, they had a very, very long fight where Superman basically was, evil Superman, I should say, was just beating up Clark Kent, and then Clark Kent ended up coming back at the end and attacking Superman. Another mixed aspect I have in here, the final mixed aspect, I have the main love interest side of things. So, this one's an oddball, because
I think that part of the story of him going back to Kansas is interesting and trying to find his high school sweetheart, even though they never dated, and try to get with her since Lois already forgot about Clark.
I do think out of all the different storylines in this movie, which we'll talk about later, I do think that one was actually the most interesting one to me, with him going back to Smallville with his old girl he used to have a crush on. So I thought that was okay. Alright, sure. However, they just make it feel at the end. I didn't really feel anything between the two characters, even though at first they made it seem like she actually likes the Clark side of things. But once he tries to flirt with her as Superman, she basically abandons Clark altogether, even though she was interested in Clark to begin with. So it's odd. But that is mixed on. Now let's move on to the bad. Ooh, I got a plethora here. This is not Superman 3. This is the Gus Gorman movie with a guest appearance from Superman. I literally didn't remember anything about that. I thought it was actually just a Superman movie. I thought Gus Gorman was actually the villain of the movie, which he's kind of antagonistic earlier on in the film, but then he becomes a good guy at the end, which, again, was just weird. But you're telling me you're gonna have a comedian
as your main character of the movie, essentially, and you're not gonna have him do his comedic shtick at all in this film? That's full crime number one with this flaw. On top of that, he shouldn't be the lead character of this movie. It should be Superman. Because, hello, his name's in the title, Superman 3.
That's issue number one. Another one. Way too many storylines going on at the same time. So I already said, even though I love Superman 2, that has a whole lot of plot lines in it of itself. In here, there is even more storylines to count in here. You have Clark going back to Smallville to reunite with his old flame, if you will, even though they were never together. As well, you have the whole entire Gus Gorman side of things with his story where he's trying to become rich or something like that. I completely forgot about that plot, by the way, which that I watched this literally days ago and I completely forgot about that already. That's a bad thing. You have the whole entire evil AI concept that gets developed later on in the film, where it doesn't even really feel built out in the movie. It's just what that is. Hey, someone needs to go in the writing room and just make two storylines together. Possibly all of these in their own right possibly could warrant their own Superman-esque movie, but I guess not. The evil airport, the evil AI part of the film as well, terrible with the way that they end. Now, originally when they were filming this movie, they said it was supposed to be Brainiac, which that would have been cool. Maybe I would have been a little more positive on Superman 3 while still being negative with that whole entire ending sequence. But you have this goofy effect where this girl of the group or whatever with Gus Gorman, she ended up pushed back into the cables or whatever, and they end up attacking her basically and turning her, I just said basically again, I apologize, but turn her into the evil robot in physical form, where I just thought that was goofy as all heck, and it did not need to be in the Superman franchise, which as well brings me to my next thing. This film is so goofy. I mean,
the opening scene of this film alone, the opening credits, sets you for the movie that you're about to experience. And it would maybe make it entertainingly bad. However, they make it 2.5 hours long or something like that.
I loosely talked about this earlier. It's sidelining all the Daily Bugle people in here. You have Jimmy Olsen that gets sidelined, even though he hasn't been really a big part of the last two movies, to be fair. Lois gets sidelined, which, to be fair, it makes sense why they did that, because she lost memory of her and Clark being together. So that narratively I understand. However, they just completely undo that with the next movie, which we'll talk about soon, trust me. Which, it's just why. Perry White, completely not even a part of the story here. Just, man, that could have added so much more to this film, but probably still wouldn't get a negative review. But that is just my thoughts on Superman 3. Let's bring out the toxic meat here. This gets a toxic trash. I'm very surprised at how bad this movie was. I didn't remember a single thing when I was younger about this movie because I just basically skipped over it. So I said basically again. But ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, that's just my thoughts on Superman 3. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on this film down below. With that being said, guys, I'll see y'all next one, everybody. Peace, y'all.